welcome to another episode of Women Series, where we capture developments and stories that impact women. The COVID-19 pandemic has shed the spotlight on existing gender inequalities in employment and entrepreneurship as women continue to bear the brunt of the pandemic. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, SMEs, including women-owned, have been hit hard by the pandemic as they have higher levels of vulnerability and less resilience and flexibility in dealing with the costs that surviving the COVID-19 crisis entails. Private sector companies can play a key role in enabling women's entrepreneurship. However, through women entrepreneurs working in their value chains or indirectly through women in the communities where they operate. And also corporate strategies and interventions that support women as well as men to cope and navigate through the pandemic are also very crucial. Therefore, in today's episode, we will be bringing you update from a webinar hosted by IFC and the Nigerian Stock Exchange under the Nigeria to Equal program, convening listed companies and the private sector to understand the gendered implications of COVID-19 on SMEs and explore strategies for better integrating WSMEs in corporate value chains. In a recent study by Organization for OECD, more than 50% of SMEs have already lost significant revenue and are at risk of being out of business within 3 months. And women are unequally represented in these sectors, the informal and the SME sectors. The divisional head shared service of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Mr. Taiwo Adeoti, spoke on the theme Gender Implications of COVID-19 on Women's Entrepreneurship, Supporting SME and Women-owned Businesses in Corporate Value Chains, mentioning that over the years, the NSC and IFC have collaborated extensively to galvanize the private sector towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. One of such collaborations was the annual NSC International Women's Day Symposium and the Ring the Bell for Gender Equality carried out earlier this year at the 2020 International Women's Day Symposium, which held in March. Now, the Nigeria to Equal initiative kicked off in May with a webinar that explored the gender implications of COVID-19 for women as employees, and the conversation that ensued during that webinar highlighted the differential socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic of men and women, with women predicted to face more negative impacts. COVID-19 pandemic has continued to disrupt economic activities all over the world, and the informal sector and the small and medium enterprises are at the center of the crisis. Entrepreneurs in Nigeria face significant challenges in accessing finance to sustain or expand their businesses. And with the high level of female participation in entrepreneurship, OECD in 2019 put female participation at 58% compared to males' 45%. Experts anticipate that the COVID-19 crisis would hinder the progress made in advancing women's entrepreneurship in Nigeria. According to Mr. Taiwo Adeoti at the NSC, they prioritize the issues of gender equality in line with the commitment to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, specifically Goal number 5, which focuses on gender equality and women's empowerment. Speaking further, he said much more, we continue to play our traditional role as an enabler of capital flow from areas of surplus to deficit through the recent launch of the Growth Board to support SMEs to access capital within the market, especially in these unprecedented times. He closed by saying that the exchange was very proud to be strengthening its partnership with IFC to provide guidance and support for women entrepreneurs in Nigeria. Further on in the webinar, Angela Kariuki, speaking on the pandemic affecting women and men differently, stated that COVID-19 is revealing and exacerbating existing gender gaps in economic security, health and safety, and decision-making. According to ILO, women spend 3 times the amount of time on unpaid care than men, as school, daycare, and elder care closure elevated women's care responsibilities, reducing time available for paid work and prompting women to leave their jobs. Also, according to UNFPA, confinement from stay-at-home orders and restrictions in movement coupled with the increased exposure to violent partners resulted in more incidences of gender-based violence to surge by as much as 20%. And from the MSME finance gap, liquidity constraints are amplifying pre-crisis unmet credit gap of $1.48 trillion faced by women-owned small and medium enterprises in emerging markets. Also, according to the ITU, women are on average 17% less likely to use the internet and 20% less likely to own a smartphone than men, and then digital dives are making it difficult for WSMEs to adjust their operations amidst the national lockdowns. Now, the impact of the COVID-19 on women entrepreneurs have been faced in different areas, and financially, the supply chain disruptions, the shift to digital business, the adjustment to operations, network and advice, also the mental health, and then employee support. Now, the challenges and needs expressed by women and entrepreneurs under these sectors is that financially, 90% of WMSMEs face a decrease in sales, reduction of cash flow with a survival of 1 to 3 months, a demand plummeting in sectors where most women are operating, also the insufficient finance and working capital leading to liquidity constraints and insolvency, and then the urgent need of flexible financing. Also, under the supply chain disruptions, 62% of small business are unable to deliver on existing contracts due to logistical challenges, their inventory delays and shortages, and labor shortages due to quarantine and fear and low cash flows. Also, shipping delays and other fulfillment disruptions, and then the inability to source raw materials and inputs for products. Under the shift to digital business, 87% of WMSMEs plans to sell online due to COVID-19. An increase in e-commerce, that's the creation of websites or improvements on their current ones, and then alternate channels such as marketplaces. Also communicates timely with customers, delivery dates and the availability of goods. And then those already selling online do not expect a downturn in sales. Under the adjustment of operations, over 1/3 of WSMEs adapting products and services to customer needs, and then diversifying suppliers networks. Also, the adjustment of operations, where we have over 1/3 of WSMEs adapting their products and services to their customers' needs, and then the diversification of suppliers network, the use of technology to engage customers, suppliers, distributors, that is online payments and mobile phones, and then the adoption of alternative distribution channels such as motorcycles to deliver goods directly to the customers. Also, under the network and advice, there's the need to shift digital business and not being sure where to start from, and then they're already operating smaller, less diverse networks than men, and they're less likely to know where to go for advice on crisis management and business resilience strategies. Also, the need for technical assistance to pivot business models. And also under the mental health, we see that 34% of WMSMEs have increased anxiety. The situation has reduced productivity. And then 27% of WMSMEs increased care demands, that is the children and elderly, and then reduced time spent on the business. Also, there's the uncertainty surrounding how to manage risks and losses related to COVID-19, and then how to provide protection and support for the health of the employees. And then lastly, under the employee support, we see that more than 1/3 of small businesses have reduced their number of employees, and there's been a decrease in employee morale, and how due to revenues declining, inability to work remotely, and then due to family care responsibility. Also, there is the need for financial support to pay wages. The webinar also had discussions like Adenike, Adeyemi, Ayodele, Olochede, Bushra Russell, Peter Bamkole, and was moderated by Anne Kabugi. And that's brings us to the end of this episode of the Women series. To connect with us on our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, with the details shown on your screen. You could also send me an email at programs@poshareng.com. Till next week when I come your way again, thank you for watching, and bye for now.